further ado, let me introduce our, I'm sorry, I just did that and got out of the screen. Our speaker for tonight. Daryle Lamont Jenkins is the founder and executive director of One People's Project. It's a new Brunswick-based anti-hate organization. It researches, monitors, and reports on right-wing groups and individuals that seek to polarize our communities. It was founded in 2000 and it's a go-to source for matters like this. It's played an instrumental role in causing the collapse of hate groups around the country. And people trying to escape white power circles also find support there. So there's an event or a movie about Brian Widner, who was featured in a documentary called Erasing Hate after working with Daryle to get out of a skinhead movement. Erasing Hate has been turned into a feature film named Skin, and Daryle is also the co-producer of a short film also called Skin. It won an Academy Award for Best Live Action Short. Daryle is currently featured in the Netflix documentary Alt-Right Age of Rage, which I just watched earlier today, so you can all probably have access to it if you have Netflix. And Daryle has appeared on A Current Affair, The Rachel Maddow Show, The Montel Williams Show, 2020, CNN, and even Fox News. So maybe he'll tell us how that went. Okay, so with that, we're really lucky to have Daryle with us. He's a phenomenal person. And thank you so much for coming. And the stage is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Barbara and Ritu and everybody. I'm just glad to be here. It's been a trying couple of weeks for everybody. I just want to, hopefully everybody's okay and everybody's just trying to take everything in because I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon. If it does stop, we failed. I mean, and we'll just sit here laying and waiting until the next thing happens. And I think we have just come to terms with the fact that we really don't want to do that this time. So I hope everybody's okay. I have to apologize because every now and then I'm going to take a swig of my water here and there because I have this cough. It's not related to anything coronavirus or anything like that. It's just something that I've been dealing with for the past couple of months. I apologize for that, but there is I just came back from a rally here in my hometown. I'm in Somerset, and it was about a good 1,000 community people here speaking out and trying to get their voices heard about what's been going on. You're talking about young people that are going to go forward in whatever climate that we create today. So I think it's just, I just got to make sure I'm doing my part to make sure that everything will be okay in the future for them. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 30 years of my life. And some of y'all probably heard of me. Somebody might have seen the documentary Alt-Right Age of Rage or Erasing Hate or Skin, where we have some big names. We had some big names in the movie. We had Vera Farmiga in there. We had Jamie Bell, who played Billy Elliot, if anyone's familiar with that movie. Luke Cage played me, Mike Coulter. And it did pretty well. People liked the movie. It's and you can find it on Amazon Prime if people subscribe to Amazon Prime. And then again, also, yeah, the documentary Alt-Right Age of Rage. But all of that is not, excuse me, I apologize again. All of that is irrelevant to the fact that we have some work to do. And it's all about the work when it comes right down to it. It's not about Hollywood. It's not about getting my face in the camera, even though I'm going to be on CNN in a couple of days. It's all about a mission that we all have. I understand that everybody's trying to deal with the racism that's coming to their doorstep, the white supremacists that are coming to aggravate your communities. And I'm here to probably give you a little bit more insight as to who they are and and what it is that we can do to basically diminish their ability to function. Let me tell you something. One of the groups that you've been dealing with is a small group, a group called New Jersey European Heritage Association. You might see their flyers or their stickers all over the place because ultimately that's all they do, unless we cause them some grief. Because their leader, Dan D'Ambly, based out of Dayton, is seen at a lot of the right-wing events. He was at the Trump rally in Wildwood not too long ago, and he was at some of these reopen rallies just a few weeks back, and it was crazy because I'm sitting there watching. Some of y'all might be familiar with the story about the gym that refused to close because freedom. Well, he was at that rally, and when the Channel 7, when Eyewitness News covered the rally, they had him front and center holding a megaphone, yelling and screaming into it, and I recognized him immediately, especially since he had one of his group's decals on his megaphone. So we called it out. We said, hey, look, you got white supremacists in your group, in your rally. What are you going to do about it? Next thing you know, we see a picture of the gym owner holding that megaphone with the white power tattoo on the side of it, white power decal on the side of it. So we made some noise about that. And a lot of people were trying to tell me that he wasn't a racist. I said, okay, fine. Maybe he's not a racist. Maybe he just grabbed that megaphone. And then they announced that they was going to have a reopen rally in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. And they had a little marquee flyer of everybody that was going to be speaking. And they used that picture. So we had to go again and say, look, you guys are not helping yourselves if you keep on associating yourself with this nonsense. So they changed the picture and they had their rally. And then one of the guys who was at the rally was a guy named Paul Miller. And Paul Miller I just started learning about him right then and there, because Paul Miller is about this thing called the Boogaloo. And the Boogaloo is supposed to be about pushing for this next civil war. They want another civil war in this country. And the Boogaloo line comes from, Break Into Electric Boogaloo. Now they just changed that to Civil War to Electric Boogaloo. Then they shortened it to be in code. And so I started following him when he went to the rally, when he went to the reopen rally in Point Pleasant. And that was the day that George Floyd died. So that day was the last day we were dealing with the reopen rallies, because everything changed after that. The next day, we was talking about Minneapolis and how everything started flaring up and how everything was starting to get hot. And the reason why I bring up Paul Miller and the Boogaloo is because him and his crowd were going to Minneapolis. He's still here in New Brunswick. He lives in New Brunswick. But his crew of people, the folks that believe in all that nonsense, they were en route to Minneapolis to try to use whatever unrest was going on to advance their mission of another civil war. They was going to go in there and try to engage in violence and attacks and the like. And I was trying to warn people on Instagram that they were going to come out and try to do that. And sure enough, we see what happens. We hear the governor of Minnesota saying a lot of people that they were arrested were indeed white supremacists. One guy, I believe on Friday of last week, one of that crowd was complaining about how he got robbed, how he was beaten down, how he was beaten up by some of the locals there and got robbed while he was trying to start the Boogaloo. He got robbed of his gun. They took his gun from him. So you could see that they were serious about the fact that they wanted to spark this off. And now we have things going on all over the country. And bottom line is, we have to understand why that anger. We have to understand also how to keep people from exploiting that anger so they can shift it into something that we never asked for. And that's what my group, One People's Project, has been doing for 20 years. I've been in the scene. I've been trying to deal with white supremacists for about 30. I was in the Air Force back in 1987. I was watching an Oprah Winfrey show on skinheads, on what they called skinheads at the time. And I thought it was, from that moment, I thought it was important for me to start documenting who are these individuals, where are they coming from, and basically what did they want. So I started recording and saving the tapes every time they showed up on these talk radio shows. I'm sorry, every time they showed up on these talk shows like Oprah Winfrey, Donahue, or something like that. Talk radio came later, because then I started noticing that the rhetoric that they were saying on these programs, you started hearing from the likes of Rush Limbaugh, the late Bob Grant, and whomever is on talk radio in the area on 77 ABC or what have you. So I started dubbing those tapes as well. Sure enough, here comes Bob Grant allowing those same white supremacists, those same neo-Nazis, to leave their contact information on his airwaves. So now we see the connections. Hold on. I really do have to apologize for the coughing. It's just something that I have to deal with. So I try to be careful and try to not to talk too much. But this is something that's really important. This is something that we have to discuss. But anyway, eventually I started dealing with the white supremacists directly. And in 2000, when the white supremacists started coming into New Jersey, in particular Morristown, New Jersey, to try to hold rallies, which is something that by that point we did not see much of. We probably just 6 months before, we had a Klan rally in New York City, which was only the second Klan rally in the history of New York City, and we realized that something was going to change. Something was going on. So we confronted and we had a counter demo to the rally that happened on July 4th, 2000. And from that day, we decided to maintain our coalition that we was calling the One People's Coalition at the time. And we've been here for 20 years. July 4th will be our 20th anniversary. We now call ourselves One People's Project. And what we do, we're kind of like a radical SPOC. We monitor, research, and report on right-wing, not just racist, but right-wing groups and individuals in an effort to diminish their ability to function. Now, the reason why I say in particular right-wing as opposed to just racist is because we have a lot of hate politics going on, particularly from the right. And we're not just talking about racism. We're talking about sexism, misogyny. We're talking about religious bias, hatred, Islamophobia, xenophobia, homophobia. You know, we're tired of just simply complaining about it. Now we have to start dealing with the individuals that keep furthering those ideals, because what they're telling you is that you are not compatible with the society that they want. We need to tell them that they are not compatible with the society that we want, and we have a little bit more of a say in this day and age. And it is important for us to maintain that say, because if we don't, we will find ourselves on the outside looking in, just as we have for the past 400 years. And we're coming into an era where the demographics are shifting to the point that we are starting to see us in positions that we've never seen ourselves in before. And they recognize that, hence the Civil War, because they figure, as Paul Miller said on one of his Instagram accounts, that the Civil War will happen when the right does not feel that they can win a national election anymore. When that happens, it'll be okay for them to break the law. And when that happens, the Civil War will begin. He says it just like that. By the way, if you ever want to find Paul Miller on Instagram, just search under the name Gypsy Crusader. Gypsy Crusader is one word, and you can see some of the worst things. I mean, he has several Instagram accounts, and they're all bad. He's particularly anti-Muslim. He wanted Ilhan Omar to be killed. He called for that last year. He wants Bill Gates to be killed. He called for that this year. He cheered on the New Zealand shootings from a couple of months ago. I mean, these are the kind of people that we're dealing with. So, to that end, one of our hallmarks is that my organization decided we needed to do something a little bit more, I don't know, I guess you could probably say aggressive. There was a anti-abortion provider by the name of Neil Horsley. He's passed on since. And he had a website called the Nuremberg Files, and he listed the names and addresses of abortion providers back in the late 90s. And when Bernard Slepian, who was on that list, got killed by one of these anti-abortion activists, he crossed his name out that same day, and that freaked everybody out. So what happened was the abortion providers were on those lists, was on the placards that other anti-abortion activists would have when they're outside their clinics. They took them to court. They said, no, this is threatening us. This is intimidation. The court sided with the anti-abortion activists, saying that they have free speech and this is public information. Our attitude, once we heard that, was, okay, it's okay for them to do that. That's just another tool for us. We're reporters. Journalism is my vocation. I believe in giving everybody every bit of information that we can about the individuals that we're dealing with, and that's how we got tapped as being the people who started doxing in this country. Because we started putting the names and addresses of a lot of people out there and their employment and everything on our website. And, you know, some people got upset. Nobody got into any particular trouble through that. Nobody committed any crimes because of the information that we've had. But they did lose their jobs. They did lose their political standing. Some of them probably saw jail time. But the fact of the matter is, they were exposed. They were shown to be who they were. And that's what One People's Project does. We don't wait to find it online either. We go and get it. And that's one of the reasons why people are familiar with a guy named James O'Keefe, who just put out a really corny video about Antifa today, talking about how he exposes them. And I would say that what happened with him, for us, is that one day he thought he was going to wiretap a U.S. senator's phone, go to their office of what have you. He got arrested, and his mugshot appeared. Our photographer recognized him from the mugshot because she took pictures of him at a white supremacist conference. We put that on blast, and he was working with Andrew Breitbart at the time. Andrew Breitbart lost his mind when we was putting it out there that he was at a racist conference. So he was doing all the propaganda routines that he could on Twitter. And he wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't talk to anybody from One People's Project. He just did everything he could to scare, people like the Village Voice and the Huffington Post from allowing the story to go forward. Well, CPAC was coming up sometime within that week. CPAC is the Conservative Political Action Conference, where right-wingers come from all over the country to basically bounce ideas off of each other. Well, this conference is also my hunting grounds. I go there all the time to find white supremacists, and I always come back with results. This year, however, I got into it with Breitbart. And it's all over YouTube right now. It goes back a couple of years. And the big thing that everybody always takes away from it is the fact that I called him a racist. So what? He is. Later on, we will find James O'Keefe in pictures with other white supremacists and going to other conferences with other white supremacists. and it's particularly who we call the alt-right now. And Andrew Breitbart, we see him in pictures with what's his name, Matthew Heimbach, a well-known neo-Nazi. So we are on point with which is really important to us. We cannot engage in narratives. We cannot engage in propaganda. We have to engage in truth. And we have to tell the truth about what it is we see, because it doesn't help anybody if we don't. And that's one of the reasons why we have a positive reputation out there. We do work with the Southern Poverty Law Center from time to time. We work with anybody that wants to deal with this element effectively. And it's been good for us. And people do stand up and take notice, especially in this day and age. That's reason why I have gone. I'm one of the few Antifa that have gone public with a lot of stuff. I go out there and I talk to folks and tell them, hey, this is what's happening. First show that I ever went on was Fox News. And it was a weekend show. And they basically wanted to talk to me about a rally that was taking place that day. And, it was fine. It was okay. It wasn't like a break, what you would expect Fox News would be for some random leftists out there. It isn't Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity or anything like that. This was just another guy who had a show on Fox News. There wasn't any real drama. So we moved on. And then you started seeing me on other shows, Montel, Rachel Maddow show, which is where everybody started really getting to know me. Joy Reid, I'm on Joy Reid's show a lot. And of course, the movies and the TV shows. And bottom line is, what I would say is that it's all important for us to understand what it is we're dealing with, which is why I go out there. If somebody asks, what is Antifa? I can tell them I am Antifa. We don't go out there willy-nilly trying to cause all kinds of drama. We're really in the back. We're really behind the scenes, if anything, just providing support right now, because it's not our voices that you need to hear. It's the voices of those brothers and sisters out there that are going to be the first ones that police go after. I mean, it's really funny how we had all these armed protests all over the country and the police just stared at them. We got the tear gas, we got the hoses, we got the nightsticks, and we got killed. Some of us are dead now because of what's been going on these past few weeks. And we have to show people that, look, that is the dynamic we're dealing with. That is the kind of thing we are dealing with. These are people who killed someone in Charlottesville, where I went to Charlottesville as well. They killed someone in Charlottesville simply because we wanted to take down a monument to white supremacy. If they're fighting that hard to protect the statue, then you know that they really want to come after us in a big way. That rally was called Unite the Right. So whenever you hear people from Paul Miller talking trash about civil wars, to Louis Gohmert, a representative in Congress, echoing those sentiments, then you know that we have a situation. And it's a situation that I think we need to address today. So again, thank you for having me here, and I'm opening up to questions now.
Okay, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Let me just find the top of it. Okay, you did, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to say any more about your work with the Southern Poverty Law Center, or did you cover that?
No, I think basically the deal with the Southern Poverty Law Center is that like I said, we work with people, anybody that's trying to deal with this element. So Southern Poverty Law Center is one group. I mean, there's Political Research Associates as well. They used to be the Center for New Community, but they're not around anymore. And of course, other left-wing organizations. Doesn't necessarily have to be, actually doesn't even necessarily have to be political. Anyone that's trying to deal with this situation, anyone that has information on how to deal with the situation, we're going to work with.
Okay, the next question is, do you use your experience in the military to help you find these white supremacists?
You know, it's funny. I mean, I was a police officer when I was in the military. And I didn't have a good go of the military when I was there, actually. But my experience in the military just gave me, I guess you could say there is something that I take away from it, a little bit of knowledge on how to be more observant about things around me. I don't know. But I think for the most part, it's always been there. It's always been something that I wanted to study. When I was a kid, I used to wonder whatever happened to the civil rights movement, the people that fought us in the civil rights movement. And you would read your weekly reader and you would see that there was a Klansman here that's trying to pull some stuff. And it's 1978 and I'm in the 10th grade and I'm sitting there going, oh, okay, so the Klan still exists. The following year, Greensboro happened in North Carolina where they massacred a couple of people. So, you know, it's always been something that I had paid very close attention to. So the military, it just happened to be in the military when I started saying, okay, I'm going to take this even more seriously than I have in the past. So it's just I just happen to be there. But I don't really think that the military necessarily is what motivated me to do this. I think I was already there to begin with.
Mm. Okay, the next question is, any defamation or liability suits, I suppose, or any outcomes? I guess they're asking if you've had any defamation suits against you.
There has been attempts in the past. One attempt was we shut down a conference called the American Renaissance Conference.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically CPAC for racists. They all come together and they try to, you know, again, bounce ideas off each other, network. And they had a series of conferences in Washington, D.C. And we started drawing attention to them. We started calling those conferences out. And we got them shut down in D.C. Later, we would get them shut down in Charlottesville. And now they have them regularly in a state park somewhere in Tennessee. The next one is going to be May 21st of next year. Somebody, a speaker, basically sued me because I was participating in shutting down the conference. He suggested that we threatened the hotels with violence, and we didn't do that. And he also, because he lived in Oklahoma, that's where he filed the complaint. We didn't have, I was in Pennsylvania at the time, Philadelphia at the time, and it didn't have any jurisdiction there. So we ignored it. He got a default judgment, and it's been almost 10 years. And he's since passed on. He passed on a month after after he got his little verdict. So we didn't even have to care. The second time I had legal problems was just last year. And this is important. There was a white supremacist, a member of a group called the Council of Conservative Citizens named Joe Marasco, who was an attorney. More to the point, Joe Marasco is a public defender in Hudson County. And we started making noise about Joe Marasco, and he has been doing everything he can to get his information off the internet. He has threatened our provider, our host, to remove the page that we have on him. He's failed in doing that. He has sicked the FBI on me in the past. But last year, he filed a criminal complaint. He filed a complaint that said that I was cyber stalking him and engaging in ethnic intimidation. That didn't work. We managed to get the charges thrown out, and I didn't even have to show up in the courtroom. But that's as good as it gets. That's particularly one of the reasons why I say be careful with the propaganda. That's why we always have to deal in truth, because they're always going to try to come at you on the smallest thing that you get wrong. And we try to make sure that everything is on point. And that's how come they could hardly even touch us whenever we do indeed go after them. So yeah, we've had that situation. We definitely had that situation, but we know how to handle it.
Good for you. All right, next question. you're going after right wingers. Do you have any thoughts on the systemic problems that the country is dealing with right now that have come into the spotlight as a result of, recent events? These aren't necessarily right wingers or identify themselves as right wingers, but everyday people who have biases.
Do we deal with the everyday people that have biases?
Well, what are your thoughts about how to deal with that?
Um, when you're dealing with everyday people, I mean, I think it's just basically it's all part and parcel. It's not necessarily has to be something political, but there is a barometer. There is when we start getting nuanced and we start dealing with just everyday people. I mean, they still have to be called out. When you look at all the people that like to call the police on Black people just for having a barbecue, or what happened to or the Amy Cooper situation on in Central Park. I mean, those are things that have to be dealt with. Those are things that have to be addressed. That's regardless of whether or not you are in some political party or in some political group. You are doing wrong. You are doing something nefarious to some other individual. You may not be breaking the law, and maybe you are, which is why you're probably not out. You're probably not going to jail for anything. But the truth of the matter is that doesn't mean you cannot be addressed. That doesn't mean you cannot be called out, because even if it's not illegal, it's still unethical.
Mhm.
And you don't get away with that either. So yeah, there is nothing that if we see racism, we say something about racism or bigotry or any of the sorts.
Yeah, that goes back to what you said. We don't want people like that in our society, as
Right.
opposed to they don't want us in theirs. We do have more questions, but I want to take a moment to introduce. Let me see if I can unmute her now. The president of. Most of you know that this event is being sponsored by SOMA Action's Racial Justice Committee and SOMA Action. And I want to introduce our president. Let me see, trying to find her so I can unmute her.
I unmuted myself.
Oh, you're able to unmute yourself? Good. Okay, Rita
Easier.
Pancholi. I was just going to make a brief ask.
Sure. Barbara and Lisa, thank you so much for organizing this event. Daryle, your remarks alone have, I think, provided us with a history, a compendium of the anti-FATA, I don't even know if I'm saying it right.
Antifa.
Antifa, sorry, movement in this country. I mean, I've learned so much already, so thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I wanted to just spend another minute just telling everyone that SOMA Action, Daryle's talking about how we all need to be involved in this, right? We all need to be involved in this movement, and SOMA Action is our local progressive group in town. And thanks to donations such as all of you contributing to SOMA Action, we've been able to bring Daryle to come speak to us. So I know that there's a lot of vital causes to donate to right now, especially right now. But if you are so willing, and if you like what you've seen here today, take a look at our new website, somaaction.com, somaaction.org, and feel free to become a sustaining member if you're not already. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rita. Okay, so we can continue with the,
Barbara?
yes,
I did have a private question that just came to me.
okay.
And because I don't know if you saw it, because it's going directly
It's
to
probably
me.
at the end of the list, but go ahead.
Yeah. It says, I understand Antifa stands for anti-fascist. I've also heard the group is supportive of being as strong in its resistance, using force, as the factors against you. Is that true? And yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, we cannot discount the fact, and I say this all the time, but we have to recognize it as not being hyperbole. These people want to kill us. These people want to actually eradicate us. I mean, the fact that they even have these visions of civil war is enough for us to say, okay, we are going to have to be prepared for anything that they throw in our way. And using force is one of those things. Being aggressive against them is one of those things. Needless to say, it's definitely not something for optics, which is why Antifa never really looks for the optics. We look for the results. We look for producing results and making sure the solutions are put in place. And we don't have to look good getting there. That does not mean that we are going to be reckless in our approach. It doesn't mean that we're just going to arbitrarily engage in any kind of violence against large groups of people, which is why we're getting a kick out of all the silliest of things that they are saying that we're doing right now. Like Mr. Diambly of his New Jersey European American Foundation or what have you, NJEHA. He just put something on his Telegram account that Antifa was on their way to Minneapolis with cars full of explosives, to which some of our anti-fascists out there had to respond with, "We don't have enough money to lose that many cars." So when you hear things that are that ridiculous, you know that they are a little bit unhinged when it comes to us. But we also have to remember what they would do. They have brought truckloads of explosives in the past, Oklahoma City. They have caused a lot of damage and a lot of lives were lost because of this crowd over the past 20 to 30 years. So while Antifa has not killed a soul, they, on the other hand, has killed many, dozens. And as I said about Paul Miller earlier, they cheer it on. So yeah, we're going to be strong against those factors. And we will try to explain as much as we can why we are that strong. But again, I will stress, we are not there to be reckless. And I hope we haven't been.
Our fearless, well, who use any more adjectives about our president? I know, and Antifa is not an organization, or an organized organization, but he wants to put it on the terrorist list of terrorists.
That should tell you something. They know that Antifa isn't an organization. They know it's a belief system. They know it's an ideology. Everybody on this chat right now, basically, we're all Antifa. Bottom line, if you're against fascism, you're Antifa. Period. I always like to run it down, saying, Cesar Chavez was Antifa, Martin Luther King was Antifa, Ida B. Wells, who our Newsline Ida Vox is named after, she was Antifa. So when you hear them say that, you have to ask yourself, why is it that they keep on saying they're going to criminalize Antifa, as opposed to not criminalize the organizations that happen to be Antifa? There is, and I don't want them to do that, obviously, but the fact that they're going after the belief as opposed to the groups themselves that may be causing some harm, and again, there aren't any, says to everyone here what exactly they're about. We know this already because they also have a problem with people who believe that Black Lives Matter. A couple of years ago, they tried to say that was terroristic. Before that, it was Occupy. Before that, it was the anti-war movement, and for the past 20 years, they've been trying to make Muslims illegal. I think we have past history that shows that doesn't work out well. Criminalizing beliefs. Ironically enough, if you try to pass a hate crime law in any given state, these same individuals will tell you that you can't criminalize thought. They want the rules different for themselves. They will not have the rules different for themselves. That's not going to be in the cards for them. But that all depends on us. That all depends on how vigilant we are going to be against them. And I think that's what's scaring them now, is because we're really, really, really trying to be this time. We really want to make sure that this whole thing with police brutality and police killings is taken away from them. And that's why they need to do things like separate Antifa from Black Lives Matter, so that, if there's some kind of conflict while we're fighting each other, they're just coming right on through. And that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Not this time.
Okay, as I mentioned to you, we founded SOMA, which is South Orange Maplewood Against Hate Collective. And that was in response to the attempt from the European Heritage Association, the New Jersey European Heritage Association, to try to recruit or put up their I guess recruit in this area. So do you have any more information about them, and what also is the best way for us to stand up against them and other hate groups besides having lawn signs? Because maybe
Oh,
give us some
let me tell you,
suggestions.
let me tell you something. Dan D'Ambly hates my guts.
That's the
Hates
name of the
my
guy?
guts. I was at the Trump rally a couple of months ago in January. Basically, once again, my hunting grounds. And I saw him passing out his flyers. I have it around here somewhere, but he was passing around his flyers. I asked for one. He was about to hand me one. I don't know whether he was turned off by the fact that I was black or the fact that I was me. But I know he didn't like me at all, because as soon as he saw who was asking him for a flyer, he was like, "I know you. You're the one who doxed me. You got my tires slashed." I never had anything about him on the website yet. And he was over there talking about, "I'm gonna sue you," and all. So he knows me very well. And like I said, he's been spending a lot of time at some of these so-called reopen rallies. But here's the thing. He lives nearby here. I mean, he lives in Dayton, New Jersey. He used to work for the Daily News. He was I guess, a worker in their print shop until people started talking about him. Then they asked him to leave. I know he has a membership at Retro Fitness. I mean, that kind of thing. And he's not the only one. Oh, by the way, I should point out, he also went to Charlottesville, and we got footage of him at Charlottesville. He went to both Unite the Right rallies. He was at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, and then there was another one the following year in Washington, D.C., where it was just him and a dozen other people. And that's when everybody started noticing NJEHA. One of the other guys that was that's also recognizable in that group is a guy named Ron Sheehy, Sheehy, and he's out of Linden. And he has been in a number of different groups. Most notably, I know he was in a group called the Advanced White Society. They're now defunct, and now he's associating himself with the NJEHA, and he was in Charlottesville as well. He's another one that likes to try to get all his information off the internet, but he fails with us because we know we have our rights. He's a union guy. He is with the pipe fitters union, which a lot of these white supremacists like to do. They like to be a part of the unions, despite the fact that the unions are against the things that they're about in their bylaws. So these are the kind of people that we're dealing with. If anybody participated in any of the anti-ICE rallies that was being sponsored by Jewish organizations just last year, they were the ones that were protesting them. They were the ones that were countering the anti-ICE rallies, simply because they were put on by Jewish organizations. So Dan is very easy to get a hold of. Dan is very easy to keep an eye on. But there's another group that goes around passing flyers around or stickers somewhere here and there called Patriot Front. Patriot Front tries to remain inconspicuous. They mask up. They don't want people to know who they are. They do things. They sneak around and do things. But we find out who they are from time to time. There was a friend of mine who just happened to be there when they was trying to drop a banner in Brooklyn. So he videotaped them. Managed to videotape them after they took their masks off. Sent me the video. I posted it online. Channel 11 put up the video and the photograph of the two guys that was in the group. So we can get information. Sometimes we're going to need information as you all might encounter it, or if some of them decide to get out and start giving us that information. But yeah, we do have information about the individuals that are in the state of New Jersey. And the one thing to remember about right-wingers in the state of New Jersey is that they're afraid of their own shadow. They know that we will not tolerate their nonsense, and we will do something about it when it comes up.
Do you have any suggestions about what our group, the SOMA Against Hate Collective, can do? Like some activities that we should perhaps do that to fight against this?
Well, it's funny because I'm actually, One People's Project is actually part of a coalition of people across the country that are trying to figure out what to do. It's called the Anti-Fascist Unity Coalition. And what we do is we basically try to get together and try to figure out, well, what kind of programs can we put together that can advance the things that we're trying to get people to understand. Number one, we're trying to get people to understand that Antifa is not a bad word. I almost wore my Antifa t-shirt right now, but I wanted to just basically ease into that. But
it would have been fine.
I'm sure, but I didn't want to be provocative. But in any case, we come together every Sunday at 1. We have a Zoom conference like this, and we just sit and just try to bounce ideas off of each other. One of the things that we are doing isn't even related to anti-fascist work. It's recognizing the fact that these food banks across the country are being depleted, and we're trying to raise money for them, and try to have a national food drive at some point, maybe during the summer. It's going to take some work, but we're going to do it. We've already made about maybe $250, $300 as it is, but we haven't really promoted it as much as we wanted to because our website is down. If you go to the Facebook page, it's called International Anti-Fascist Unity Coalition, or Days of Unity, as we call it. There's a lot of things that besides that we want to do. We want to put on other events. Unfortunately, everything came down on us, and it makes it hard for us to organize such things. But we're working through it, and most importantly, we're also monitoring to see if anybody from any other communities across the country need help. So that's the other reason why this coalition is happening. Sometimes we have to deal with some activity that's going on in Austin, Texas, for example. There's a lot that's going on in Austin, Texas. So I'm inviting everybody, if anybody wants to know how to get on board with that. Like I said, we're going to have a meeting on Sunday at 1 o'clock, barring situations right now, because we might actually, who knows, we might have to cancel because there's a couple of us that are going to be at a rally or something like that. But if you want more information about that, I can just get I'll give you my email address at the end of this, and I'll shoot it over to Beth. Beth is out of Tennessee, and she can give you all the contact information.
Wonderful, thank you. Here's a really interesting question. It says, one of my coworkers was doxxed by your organization. My employer has refused to take employment action because they cannot verify his involvement with white supremacy. Any tips?
If they were doxxed by One People's Project, all somebody has to do is just contact me. I'm not going to ask who it is or here because I don't think that would be fair to that person. But if we dox them, there's definitely something that we have seen. If other groups dox them, look, we can't speak for other groups that happen to be Antifa.
It says it's your organization.
It was my organization. It was One People's Project.
That's what the question says. I mean, the question.
If it was our organization, I can stand by the information. I would definitely like to talk and find out what person that is, who that is.
Okay, so the person who asked the question should get.
They want me to just simply verify who the individual is.
Well, any tips? So I guess maybe the best thing is for this person.
I would definitely say that it is very important, especially if you're doing that. It is very important to make sure that every single thing that you put online about any given person is accurate, is true. Because if you're not telling the truth, if you're just trying to build a narrative for the sake of building a narrative, you're going to get somebody hurt that doesn't deserve to be hurt. Yeah. And I'm not going to be able to live with that. So I try to be professional about every single thing. Me and my group try to be professional about everything we say and do about this climate that we're in right now. So if somebody got doxxed by us, that's a bad person. Wow. And I would definitely love to help somebody along with that.
Okay, so the person who posted the question should get in touch with you so they
Absolutely.
could talk more in more detail. Okay, well, here's another really practical type question is how does One People's Project define success? How do you know when your work is having an impact?
When the people that we are after, when the folks that are out there causing damage are made to stop causing damage. When people actually get the message to the point that says we got to do something. That's how we measure success. I mean, one of the things that we talk about all the time amongst ourselves is the woman who ran as a Democrat for judgeship. Her husband is somebody who was very tight in the white supremacist scene. She didn't seem to have a problem with it, but it was a concern, so we put it out there. She lost a judge. She lost that job. Well, she did. She wasn't a judge. She was running to be a judge, and she lost that election. That was up in Connecticut a few years back. Now we found out that they run a taxi cab business up there. But some fall through the cracks. There's a group out there called the Proud Boys. Now the Proud Boys are really interesting because they are racist, and I mean they are bigoted. Their focus is on marginalizing women and Muslims, but they are who they are. And one of them is a school board member in Connecticut, young kid, and he somehow managed to get. They took their sports team at the local high school was named for the Native Americans, and they changed the name. He comes on and they bring the name back. So hopefully, I mean, I haven't I got to find out what he's up to. He's only a 20-year-old kid, but that's the kind of thing that we try to keep from happening. Somebody who's going to cause just even that much strife. That's the kind of thing that we focus on.
Do you have anything? I mean, there's loads of questions, but do you have anything you want to continue to talk about, or?
Oh, no. I think as the questions come, I'm picking up on. I mean, because I could talk for days. So fact of the matter is, whatever anybody has to ask, it's probably going to be something I wanted to bring up anyway. So.
Well, I have a question more like, I don't know if I can articulate it, but it seems to me that it seems to me that Trump has made it even more okay for white supremacists, and even that he's trying to create a white ethno state along with these white supremacists. And I think we are at a turning point in some way. Is that it's going to go one way or the other? I mean, do you have thoughts about that? Do you?
Well, I think really everybody should remember that ultimately this isn't about Trump. Even in the alt-right Age of Rage documentary, that was supposed to be a documentary about Trump's first year. After they came back from Charlottesville and realized what they had on their hands, Trump only showed up in about 10 minutes of it. And the reason for that is because it is bigger than Trump. It's about how we're all going to relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, I would say that whatever Trump is trying to do was already in motion well before Trump even thought of getting on board. Trump likes anybody who likes him. White supremacists like him. White supremacists know that they can manipulate him. That's why, the reason why he's even tweeting about making Antifa a terrorist organization, because just a couple of minutes before, someone suggested it on Fox News.
Really?
Is that ridiculous? And he even tweeted out something that Brian Kilmeade from Fox and Friends said about he doesn't see any white supremacists even being involved in what's going on in Minneapolis. Well, they are, and just because the president put it out in a tweet otherwise does not make it so. So it's not so much about Trump, it's about everybody that's using him. And it's them that need to be dealt with, and they are going to be here longer than Trump will be here. Even if he might be gone this year or gone in 4 years, we're still going to have to deal with that element. So get rid of that element, and then anything that Trump is doing is going to be irrelevant.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, I was just saying that Trump had kind of opened the door, made it okay.
He did. He did. I remember a couple of years ago, Richard Spencer, some people are familiar with him. He's a white supremacist that runs something called the National Policy Institute. He used to hold conferences during CPAC, side conferences. A group of us, I wasn't there, but some folks from my group went to the National Press Club where they were and just started videotaping them as they came out of their conference hall at the end. There was a guy that was talking to a woman, a black woman actually, talking to her, and you can hardly hear what they're talking about. And all of a sudden he started going, yeah, well, what about Trump? If we can get Trump in there, we can change all of this and yada, yada, yada. That was in February of 2015. Trump did not even announce until June. All the more reason why I say it's about them. Because they're the ones that are trying to pull some strings, pull some stunts. And Trump is giving them everything they want. They want a civil war. Trump starts talking about military actions against Antifa and protesters. And then here comes Tom Cotton of Arkansas talking about how he co-signs that. Why he is running unopposed, by the way, is beyond me. I do not know why in the world Tom Cotton is allowed to just go ahead and keep his seat. Even though Arkansas is pretty red, of course, it doesn't mean that we should not take up that challenge.
And Tom Cotton, just remind us, he's a white supremacist.
No, he is the senator of Arkansas. He's a U.S. senator in Arkansas, particularly conservative, very conservative. And after Donald Trump said that he is going to bring the military in to go after protesters, he said, yeah, do that, basically.
Okay. Another question. Do you work with Attorney General Grewal?
I haven't. I do try to stay away from some government involvement. We try to remain relatively independent, and especially when it comes to law enforcement, especially now. But if anyone asks us for information, we provide it. I mean, it's not something that we just want to keep away from people because we don't like them or whatever. So the information is out there. The only reason why we would not provide information to someone is because we didn't vet it. We didn't make sure that it was accurate, and we don't want to go out there. We don't want information out there that isn't true.
Okay. This is interesting. How do we link our individual work and that, as progressives and trying to be anti-racist day to day with anti-white supremacy work?
Well, I think just going through our day to day, in many respects, we could be doing that. But to be more directly involved with anti-racist work, for a lot of people, when it comes to them, you have the resource if you're trying to figure out what's going on. You can go to idavox.com or onepeoplesproject.com and see what kind of information you can get out of that. Or you can just simply call us and say, do you know anything about this? And if we don't, we'll go check it out if we can. We're a small group. We don't have a lot of people. We're trying like the Dickens to work on that. But that's all going to depend on whatever money and stuff like that comes in, because we have to hire people. But we will do the best we can with what we got. So that's how we can work together. Just if you see something, say something, and we'll just take it from there.
How many people do you have working for you, and are they volunteers? Are they all paid?
No, we're all volunteers. I mean, we used to have about 25. It's kind of gone down some, but there are people who want to get involved now. It's just a matter of figuring out how, because basically all we do is write. All we do is write, research, report, take pictures, and that means we got to be in the mix. So, and if you look, if people are going to be writing, I mean, it's just it gets hard when you can't pay them. I mean, if you want to do it out of the goodness of your heart like we do, hey, come on board.
I'm kind of interested because I did watch, as I was telling you earlier, I watched Age of Rage, alt-right Age of Rage. And I was surprised to find out that you were at Charlottesville. So could you talk a little bit about your experiences there and what you may or may not have witnessed when you were there?
Well, thank you. I wanted to, and I want to say, I see Amy IPP says, thank you for your work. I need to sign off now. Good to meet you, Amy. Good to meet you. I think that when Charlottesville happened, we knew it was going to happen. The reason why is because they already had 2 rallies in Charlottesville to begin with. There was a guy named Jason Kessler that had been stirring that pot all year long by that point. Because I first heard of him in January, met him in March. He was tight with Richard Spencer. And then sometime in May, they had a flash mob rally in Charlottesville that got a lot of attention. Then in July, the Klan decided to march in Charlottesville, all because of the Robert E. Lee statue in that park. And, and so people came out to oppose that. Then they announced that they was going to have something called the Unite the Right on August 12th. And everybody started planning to be out there on both sides. And when we heard how many people were talking about coming out, that's when we started talking amongst each other and said this one's going to be a little bit too big for them. And we said, hey, look, this is going to be their ultimate. Some older folks out there know what I mean when I say this was going to be their ultimate. This was going to be the end of their summer of hate. And we did not expect, so we expected it to blow up. And we expected people to start taking notice of them. I did not expect the National Guard to be on standby. I did not expect that. I expected the fisticuffs, sadly. I expected all of that. I did not expect us to be on TV live as it was going down. I didn't realize it gotten that big. And I didn't expect anybody to die. We was already, I had basically been playing Happy Warrior the entire day. I was enjoying myself. Even after I got pepper sprayed, I was pretty much enjoying myself. Because I always like it when we're out there giving it to them. I always like that. I always like the fact that we're getting something done. After I got pepper sprayed, after I recovered and all that, we were spent. We were tired. We were done. We reconvened over at a nearby church. I drove my car over there. No, my car was over there because I wanted to keep it away from the fray. I was passing out waters that I had in my cooler at the time, and we see white supremacists getting ready to go back to their cars. We see them and we just yell at them. We're just too tired to get into any kind of fights or anything like that. We're just gonna be like, F you, this and that and all that. And then while we were sitting there, we saw the ambulances going by. And we was like, oh man, it looks like things are still going on and all that. Those are the ambulances going to get Heather Heyer and everybody else that got hit by the car. And we were hearing rumblings about how a whole bunch of people got hurt. We didn't know how. Then somebody said somebody drove a car into a bunch of people. And that, by the way, recalled for me York, Pennsylvania in 2012, in January of 2012, because Charlottesville was a parallel. We saw a whole bunch of Nazis and anti-fascists coming out to basically mix it up. And it ended when somebody decided to drive a car into a whole bunch of people, but no one died in York. Somebody died this time. And that's when everything just dropped. And we just didn't know what to think. And at that time, there was rumors, we was getting rumors that people were shooting in Charlottesville. And we were laughing about that because we didn't hear about any shootings. We were here and nobody was shooting anybody. Or so we thought. 2 weeks later, the ACLU puts out a video that shows somebody
yeah,
shooting.
I saw that.
Yeah, we didn't know that happened yet.
Yeah.
We did not know. We didn't even know that happened.
Wow.
So we were laughing about the notion that somebody was shooting. I said, it isn't that bad. Sure enough. I got a
What
long
about
story about that one too, but about that guy in particular. But after Heather Heyer died, we was like, if you weren't in Charlottesville, you're here now. That was basically how we all thought. So all of a sudden, we heard that people were coming into Charlottesville from all over the place because they wanted to find out what went down, what's going on. Do y'all need help? Everybody was trying to leave Charlottesville after all of that. The white supremacists, when Heather Heyer was killed, all the white supremacists ghosted. They were gone, and we was on our way out ourselves. And then, because everybody knew me in the media, I was like, I was holed up about 45 minutes away. Somebody called me and said, yo, we need you to be on TV. We need you to talk about this. So I drove back down. I'm still trying to keep pepper spray from falling into my eyes. I still had that because it was all soaked into my clothes and all that. But I went down and I talked to folks, and I was spent. I was spent that day. And it's definitely not something I'm going to forget. But the scary thing about it is how used to things like that happening I have become.
Wow.
I did not expect anyone to die, but I did expect somewhere during the Trump tenure that people were going to lose their life. And that happened early. That's one of the reasons why I said it's bad enough that Trump was elected. But if he's there for 4, he's there for 8. That's all I kept saying that entire year. We're now up to year 4. I want to be very wrong this year, but I'm afraid. I don't know if that's going to happen. What's going on right now might change that. It might not make a difference whether or not he wins or loses. As far as I'm concerned, this is the election.
That's a good segue into another question. It says that we should get out and vote in November, to try to change all of this. But how do we keep people motivated and engaged until then? And how do we keep people still upset enough to get out there and vote? In the larger scheme of things, or in the smaller scheme of things, it's kind of a long time from now for people to forget about this.
I think that's one of the reasons why the attitude over the past couple of weeks has been, yeah, there's an election in November, but we got to do something about Trump now, right now. That's why folks are lashing out. They really don't know what to do. I mean, between now and November, more people can die. In just these past 2 weeks alone, since George Floyd was murdered, more people have died. That's what I mean by the election is now. We're going through it. And should everything be okay enough? Should the momentum still be the case when November comes rolling around? That remains to be seen. But it always seems that Trump always has something new to tick us off with. So the momentum will probably still be there. I shudder to think what the RNC is going to look like this year. But I think people are at the point, because unfortunately, yes, go out there and vote. Do not discount the vote. Even if you don't like the presidential candidates that we have, there's still down vote elections that we got to down ticket elections that we got to deal with too. We got to deal with our senators across the country. We got to deal with our Congress people. We got to deal with our state legislatures and our local council people. So there is something, so we do still have to come out and vote, regardless of how disenchanted you might even be. But we're trying to ask the question, do we really have to wait until November? He just used the military to attack peaceful protesters just so he can have a photo op. That is the definition of a violation of free speech in the most egregious terms. And we cannot get rid of them. We cannot even get people who try to lecture us on free speech all the time to get on board with shutting him down once and for all now. What if somebody died? What if somebody died because he wanted to violate their freedom of speech for a photo op? Would that have been the catalyst? If so, why do we have to wait? We have options, and we should really start exploring them, because I think what's going on right now is an indication that people are really afraid for the future. They don't know what to expect. They want to know. They want to be sure of where this society is going to go. So, yes, go out there and vote, but be mindful that there are options that we need to explore so that we do not see too much damage from here until November.
What are the options you're referring to?
There's we probably will have to put those that are in office right now. There's a lot of them that just simply need to be have their feet put to the fire. Seriously, that's one thing. Number two, you know what's really the strongest? Well, the 25th Amendment. I see Tina Kelly put that up there. The 25th Amendment. That's an example of putting feet to the fire. But then you got to get the cabinet on board. Now, some members of the cabinet were ticked off about what happened the other day. But the cabinet are sycophants, just which is who Trump wants around him. And that's what makes it hard. So if the 25th Amendment is not available to us, what else is? What is it that we're not doing? We're supposed to be a country that's supposed that has this on lockdown. We know how to do this. We are in the position to effect the change. We just have to look and see what it is that we are not doing. But I was getting ready to say the other thing is we have to take stock of our commerce as well. Sometimes the best ballot in the world is that almighty dollar. Who's paying for all of this? Who's contributing to Trump's campaign? My friend in Cleveland, this is not related to Trump, but she points out how much she has an issue with Amazon. She will not shop at Whole Foods. She does not patronize Amazon whatsoever because of their business practices, because of their their controversial labor practices. And her attitude is, why do we keep on patronizing Amazon when we can get the things that we want somewhere else? The same things. Why do we have to go through Amazon? So now we have to ask ourselves, why do we have to go to Home Depot to get our lumber? I mean, they're contributing to Trump. all these people that have made money at our expense to give to Trump, they need to be called on the carpet. And then there's some of these groups out there. You have to ask some of these groups that support Trump, these political groups, these right-wing groups